Hello everybody. We're very happy to have here these distinguished guests from two leading private companies. And this is going to be intended to be a conversation, so I'm going to be posing some questions, but basically it's going to be between the two of you. And it's about the role and responsibilities of private sector when we're talking about including citizens and having governments closer to citizens. So I would like to start with Rosalía and to know a little bit more about what perspective Telefónica is taking on citizen inclusion and smart cities.
So for Telefónica, smart cities is within the area of the Internet of Things. And what we say as our motif is we connect people with the things that matter to them. And what things matter to people? It depends on the space. So in the Internet of Things, we distinguish three spaces: the personal space, the environment where things happen, the city, the buildings, maybe the retail shops. And then other spaces like agri-food or Industry 4.0 or long-distance transportation. So for us, one of the sensors, the main sensors of the city is the person, but not just the sensor that he could be wearing, his mobile phone, maybe a wearable, but also the feeling of that person. So what is his perception of the city services? What is his perception of the city life? And for that, we have this joint venture with in Open Seneca. So we are investing actively in this kind of solutions. We are also deploying this kind of solutions in certain cities, things like applications where a citizen can give feedback to the municipality. I have found this broken lighting post or whatever, and something happens next. And we're, in fact, for certain municipalities, providing KPIs of the operational services. So in one city in Spain, we have a dashboard based on what the company providing services of waste management is being paid. So we are able to collect data of factual things like sensors in the waste management, but also we're able to collect in the same dashboard data from the feeling of the citizens and facts about the time it took to solve the issues on the waste management services. So as a summary, I would say for Telefónica, smart cities is related to the Internet of Things. It's relevant based on the space that the people occupy, so it's relevant in a certain context, and that contextual information is relevant for Telefónica because we are a data company. We want to become a data company. We're a service provider today, a telecom service provider, but we're investing heavily in what we call the fourth platform and collecting data that is relevant to consumers and relevant to other companies. In that sense, we also collaborate. By chance, we discovered that we know each other from the past. We are collaborating with MasterCard with a joint venture in Latin America for payments. And there is plenty of data that we can extract from that joint venture that can add value to the citizens and to other companies.
And Hany, I know that for MasterCard, citizen inclusion, it's key. It's one of the 4 key areas that you're talking about. But people mostly know that MasterCard is a payment company. Could you please explain a little bit more about the importance of citizen inclusion for your company?
Sure. So, people do think of us as a payment company, but we're actually at our heart and have been for many, many years a technology company. In fact, Forbes for the last 2 years has recognized us in their top 10 innovative companies in the world. And people don't think about that. For us, inclusion is really, really critical. It's not a CSR thing, and when we talk about inclusion, we talk about several types of inclusion, which is where I'm really enjoying what Rosalía is saying. For us, it's not only financial inclusion, it's social inclusion. We also, in our narrative, what we talk about is the safety and security of citizens. Which is a very big topic for us. It's one of the 4 key areas, as you mentioned, Regina. Innovation is a big deal for us. Data, as you mentioned, Rosalía, we have been collecting and scrubbing anonymized data for nearly 20 years in the company, so we have profound insights into actual behaviors while ever protecting the anonymity and privacy of individuals behind that data. And then finally, the place where we see all those things come together is in cities. This is the environment where everything that we know, all of our services, and there are many, 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 beyond financial services, and the partnerships we have, including the one that we have, and a number of very strategic partnerships that are complementary here, allow us to be able to go to a city with an integrated view and a set of solutions that are not always just provided by MasterCard, but in partnership we're able to bring to the city an integrated set of solutions. Those solutions include addressing many things. You've mentioned some of them already today, and it's great that we're so aligned around those things. In addition to that, areas around urban planning. You know, most cities today are not well equipped to deal with the growth of populations coming. Economic development and economic growth. Where to grow next, and what impact will that have? I already mentioned safety and security, but cities are thinking about that in ways including crime data and how to deal with crime issues as you get this growth of populations in cities. And then finally, insights, and you mentioned a great word that I really love of a city dashboard. We also produce a city dashboard of economic growth right down to an individual block level in a city that can show city authorities and planners what's happening economically in real time in the city. So for us, inclusion is a big deal. The Internet of Things we are huge believers in and are huge partners in, but we're also believers that to have the Internet of Things be successful, or the Internet of Everything, you have to have the Internet of Everyone. So you have to be able to include people as well.
We are seeing that the voting rates are decreasing, and we are seeing that technology is more available than before. We're seeing that revolution, and we're also seeing different results than expected in some political processes. I would like to know, what do you think are the main impediments or the new trends in participation, especially when we're talking about a city environment? And I know it's not an easy one.
It's not an easy one. It's one thing that we did an assessment a couple of years ago using Instituto de Empresa. And we also, what we did is a research asking 1,000 citizens about their priorities about smart cities. We asked the same question to municipalities, we asked the same question to enterprise, and we found a gap. So if in between the private sector and the citizens there is a gap on what is needed in the market, there is an issue. I'm today working on, my main activity is marketing. If I'm not able to read the demand of my customer, I have an issue. And what I believe is we have an issue of municipalities not understanding that the customer they have today is not the customer they had 10 years ago. The customer today has more information, a wealth of information. The customer today is better connected. You ask, maybe in the past you could ask 10 people in your environment about which car to buy. Now you can ask anybody in the whole world what is their opinion of a brand and a specific model. So why should you be being governed in the same way as 20 years ago? You want today more information, you want today credible information, and you want today to hear the opinion of others like you who live in the same city. So it's, to me, the vision is the society has changed, and we as companies or as providers, private companies and public entities, we have not understood that the citizen is a different one.
I really agree with you. I think the need for public-private partnerships is bigger than ever, and it's a model that has to evolve, as you say. It's not the model of 20 years ago. It's a model where information is ubiquitous and accessible to people. So, we always say once you include people and give them the ability to pay for things that matter to them, then you have to be ready to include their voice, which is what you're talking about. And it's so important. You have to be able to include their preferences and what they care about. And a city that's thinking about how it includes the voice of its citizens and how it includes their wishes and desires with what's important and what matters and what's possible in a city is a city that's going to be successful. We talk about the word smart cities, but really I think a better word for that is connected communities. And those communities can be in one city or across multiple cities. So, the ability for people to get together around things that matter to them, whether they live in the same city or whether they live on opposite ends of the world, is becoming an increasing reality. And I think that private companies that touch so many people. I mean, you know, we today, like you, reach the majority of the world's population and we personally have very explicit goals to reach the next 500 million people in the world from an inclusion point of view. You know, we're currently working on 1,300 different programs in 73 cities around the world, and it's only increasing as cities who are becoming increasingly enlightened about the need for connectivity want to be able to reach people and understand them better, and that's where I think we have a very significant role to play in that.
We're going to give some time to the audience also to make questions if they want, but I'm very interested about the importance of something that we always have in our pockets, the cell phones. As citizens, even the ones that we are assuming they don't have the resources, they are making a big effort to have phones. What's the importance of the new way the mobile is changing participation as smart cities? And are we using that? Do we know how to use that? Oh, this is something we're still discussing at the companies and the city level.
We could talk about this all day.
I know. Just a brief idea.
Okay. The mobile phone is now the most important piece, maybe of a family and of a house today. It's anything you cannot leave the house or live within the house today. Are we using this? We are using as a telecommunications company, of course. We have had to change the channels where we communicate to our customers, especially when they are younger, or especially in certain regions, using the mobile phone as a channel with them. We have also changed the way that we process the information that we can collect from the network, the Telefónica network, where we collect CDRs. We are also using cleaning algorithms, so abstracting that data. It's anonymized. And we're using that information, but not just for giving better services, like about coverage or about where to reinforce our network, because we know where we have more traffic, but also because we're able to cross that data with information that is relevant to the city. And for example, in terms of tourism, we had a project with the city of Barcelona in the past, where we were able to tell the city which foreigner people were coming, which dates they were coming, and which times. So, for example, a decision that it was made is because there were too many Russian people coming to the city at a time when the small shops were closed, the municipality decided to inform those businesses so they could decide if they wanted to open the shop for having some business with this tourism. Yeah? So, summary is a key element. This is the key sensor. This is the key sensor. But we have to be very careful about data privacy and about the security of these devices.
I think that's a really important point. You know, we pioneered a lot of work in tokenization for both credentials as well as personal data, and you know, we're big advocates of that, of not only protecting data but anonymizing it. It's such an important point, and I think we agree on that in terms of the going forward. I agree with you completely about digital platforms that live in our pockets and increasingly are the primary mechanism by which we interact, by which we pay, by which we do things. As you were describing those insights to cities, the word that comes to my mind, and it's something we do a lot of, and I know it's something we do a lot of together as well in some of the endeavors you mentioned, is demand management or active demand management, where essentially, if you look at today in the world, half the world's population lives in cities, and that number is going to grow to 75% by 2050. There isn't a city in the world that's ready to cope with that level of demand. So the importance of what Rosalía was saying in terms of the primary sensor and the ability to provide insights to cities is really critical. We feel the same way. And from our perspective, that active demand management really has some underpinnings to it that are very practical in all of our lives. And I'll give you some examples. If you were able in a city to push 5 to 7% of people who catch public transport to the left or right of the peak in the morning and the evening by just a few minutes, that has the effect for a big city of pushing its capital expenditure out by 2 years. For a large global city, the interest on that CapEx shift alone is about $150 million, the interest alone. Second point, standards. We were talking about this earlier. One of the things that the mobile phone and the standards in the phone and companies like Telefónica and MasterCard are obsessive about is open architecture and open standards. We are not fans of closed standards. Again, to my transport example, 300 different transit systems around the world for no good reason. And that really kills efficiency. On average, most of you won't know this, but it costs most cities 15% of the total fares just to collect the fares for public transport. It also means, as a visitor, when I come from London or New York or Moscow to Barcelona, I have no way of knowing how to use the public transport system in a city. But in an open standard model, and we've recently published data with the City of London, and there are others that are working to the same tune, that cost of 15% goes down dramatically. In the case of London, it went down to 9 and it's on its way to 6. That's real and immediate savings for the city that can be redeployed into public programs that affect the lives of citizens.
We're going to have probably a last question before opening the floor. Civiciti promotes continuous democracy. And as a concept, for us, it means that people are going to be participation all the time during all the process. So what it means living in a continuous democracy for the work that you do?
It means to be exposed. As a government or as a company, you are exposed. And most of the companies, we're already exposed because we have different channels of communications which are online 24/7. So anything that you do wrong in those channels can be known anywhere in the world in less than 1 second. Yeah? For municipalities, they have to change to make that digital change. Yeah? So they have to make that leap and decide that even if they're going to have that level of exposure, it's worth the effort, because otherwise someone else will come with that message and that speech and will take the big prize, yeah? The vote.
For me, it's really simple. I think it's the sister to inclusion. So we talked about digital inclusion, and Rosalía spoke about that very well. We talked about financial inclusion. This is the third leg of that stool that provides social inclusion, which is really critical. And it's frankly the thing for me that increasingly brings those things together. Technological inclusion is great, financial inclusion is great, social inclusion and the voice of citizens is really, really critical. And I think, if you pull those things together as a city and shift your mind, as Rosalía was saying, then you really are set up for success. And it's not success that is linked to whatever administration or whatever politicians are in office at the time. This goes beyond those things. This is really something that's sustained and continues throughout, 24/7, in real time, in communities.
So we have a couple of microphones. We encourage questions, so it's not just me. Pablo has a question.
Hi, it was really, really interesting. And you said a few things that trigger some worries on me about the overwhelming amount of information citizens have right now and citizen inclusion. If you take both concepts together, my question is, do you think citizens are ready and know what to do with all this information? And also, citizens generate an overwhelming amount of information themselves. And do you know they know what they are generating and what is the result of all this data that is being generated? So
Okay, with regards to are citizens prepared to know where to find that information? It's not easy, and there would be you need to spend money on letting the citizen know where to look for that information, and you need to going back to standards. Yeah, we don't have. We're talking about technical standards, but it's also that is missing here is the semantic standards. So if I want to go to have information of the municipality of Madrid, the URL totally different and the website totally different from the city of Barcelona. That's a fact. So we are far away from having that kind of standard look and feel that isn't the life of the citizen. So in that sense, we're wrong. And then I understood your question is if citizens know that they are censors. I don't believe they know, I don't believe they even read when they accept Facebook or Twitter or whatever. They even know what they're accepting when they accept this kind of services. Yeah. But regardless if they know or not, what's important is that we have even rules across companies so that we make sure that the data we collect is properly treated, is properly anonymized, and that the customer knows what it's being collected. And that is why in Telefónica we created that fourth platform, and it is our goal in that platform is to make sure that the citizen knows what is being collected from them in different websites and different applications.
I think for us, anonymization has been our key thing, and not only anonymization but tokenization. 100% of all of our data is anonymized and tokenized, so we feel very good about that. But I think that point of really getting to share back with citizens what their data is actually doing and practically showing them the value of their participation in that data is really key for cities and for private companies like ours as well. You know, even before the municipalities standardize their websites, which I agree with you will take quite a lot of time to do that for many reasons. But until then, the ability to show practically to citizens, and again, to my practical example, how do I get from the city of New York to the center of the city of Barcelona in one continuous smooth operation without having to have 10 different modes to do that? Or how do I, you know, we have a project, a big project in Russia in the province of Tatarstan where they are working on social services and really, you know, the city as a service to its citizen. How do we get to those layers that provide standardization and allow citizens to access data in practical ways that have an impact in their everyday life?
Any other question? It's your chance. Damien?
Yes, I have a question. When it comes to inclusion, whilst most people live in big cities, most cities are actually very small in size. And I was wondering, both from a citizen inclusion perspective and from a technology perspective, how your respective companies saw that aspect or that dimension of citizens and cities.
When it comes to one of the ways that we can approach inclusion is to make sure that the cost of a medium city or small city to access this kind of technologies is something which is achievable. It is easy to raise your hand as the city of London and say, I want help. 20,000 providers will come after you. If you're the city of, I want to make Toledo, yeah? It's a smaller one, yeah? You will not have so much wealth of access. So what we're working in Telefónica is to make sure that standardization is there for them to make sure the products have a reasonable price. We're working actively with the GSMA, with the ETSI, and with the TM Forum. And we are working on a 5-word standard, which is a future internet standard, which we believe is a way to make sure the products will have lower prices and that integration amongst legacy systems would be easier.
There are a collection of enlightened companies that are really embracing the standards thing, and standards is a real key to reaching deep into communities. And I appreciate your question, because really what we're talking about here is communities, and communities can be very small. They don't have to be big cities. It's been our DNA for 50 years. You know, the fact that historically you could take a payment card issued in Barcelona and go to Tibet and use it without even thinking about that it's going to work is really important. It's the same with your mobile phone, that you can take your Telefónica phone and go to the furthest place in the world and you turn it on and you just expect it to work. Those things matter. Those standards matter. But I think as we think about inclusion, I mentioned earlier a goal of the next 500 million people. We're not thinking about those 500 million people just in big cities. We're thinking about them across the globe. In fact, we have partnerships with the Gates Foundation in Africa. We have many partnerships around the world. And our company today already is in 261, you know, geographies around the world. So globality and universality for us is just within our DNA. And I know there are enlightened companies that are increasingly thinking that way about how they include people.
So our time is up. I would like to thank you, both of you, Han and Rosalía. It's been great. And I'm looking forward to partner with you in the future.
Thank you.